Hey there, citizens, Paler here, and welcome back. It's time for another tour of duty, and this time we're going to be taking the 300i, the newly reworked model for the 3.5 version of the game, out and putting it through its paces, seeing how it holds up compared to the competition. For this, we're primarily going to be comparing it to that of the Avenger Titan, as they're very similar ships. Across paper, on paper, they're almost exactly the same, but also in terms of price tag, the Avenger Titan is a $60 MSRP ship, whereas the 300i is a $65 ship. So there's a lot of comparisons to be had there. We'll also compare it a little bit to the old model. So a little bit of backstory here. My original pledge package back 2013, 8 months or so after the Kickstarter, was for a 300i. Now, this wasn't because I had any particular affinity for the 300 series. I was very indifferent about it. It was more the price point. I was looking to spend around $60 and support the game that way, a full price game. And the closest one that I liked was the 300i at $65 buy-in. So that's kind of why I ended up with this ship. In fact, I think if you go back, the very first video I ever did on Star Citizen was just a tour of the ship, walking around it in the hangar. This was before the Persistent Universe was in. This also might have been before Arena Commander even existed. So I don't even know if I could have flown this ship at that point. The ship kind of existed as just something to look at in the hangar. This was when the memes were really bad about Star Citizen, just digital pixels. Yeah, so I do have that, and we'll talk a little bit about the new model compared to the old model as we go along. Let's go ahead and we'll start with a walk around outside the ship, the normal walk around. This is going to be out of sync. I apologize, but this is all post. So yeah, we'll just edit up as good as we can. Aesthetically, it's reasonably good for, in my opinion. Now, this is all subjective. It's not generally the type of aesthetic I would go for, but I don't think it's ugly either. It's got a good, sleek design to it. The newer one, I think, looks a little bit better than the old one. It's also larger. To me, it looks like if you actually went to Lexus, maybe Audi. I'm thinking of car manufacturers that like this type of design a little bit more, and had one of their high-end, their top designers design a single-person spaceship type thing. I think it would probably aesthetically look something like this. It would probably be a little bit larger, but you get that idea. And I think that's a real credit to the artists that designed this. They're right up there with that. It has a very good, sleek design. I would say this fits aesthetically, would fit right in with Star Trek. It's, along those lines type things, or even prequel Star Wars, but when things were more like this. I would say the part I do enjoy the most is the back end. I like that A-winged tail design up into the engines. It just looks pretty cool. One area that does seem a little odd is the weapon hardpoints. This, especially compared to the 600, if you look over at the 600i, the 600 has notable weapons on it, but you don't really see them. They're well hidden within the design of the ship, where if you know where to look, you'll see them, but for the most part, they're hidden within the geometry of the ship. That's not the case here. You have 3 size 3 hardpoints, one under the nose, one under each wings, and they're just right there in your face. You also have 2 size 2 missile hardpoints, one on each wing, to go from that. We'll talk a little bit more about the hardpoints here in a moment. We'll open the side. You can only enter from one side. Opens up, and it's a ladder to climb in. This is a little odd for a luxury ship, in my opinion. I wouldn't see a luxury ship having a ladder for someone to climb up. I'm not saying a ship of this size needs an elevator, but it seems more like the door should fold down rather than to the side and have stairs on it. Stairs with a handrail rather than a ladder. It's a minor thing, but that did seem a little odd for a luxury ship. How many rich people do you expect spend time climbing ladders to get in and out of things? It's just not realistic. Even rich people planes right now, they have stairs rather than ladders. Minor complaint. Interior, I like it. It's a little plush, but the lighting, I think, is what really sells it for me. I like the line lighting on the floor. I also really like the large moonroof that runs the entire top. I think it gives it a nice, almost like Tesla, that open sky type thing. And in a starship, it really fits. It also kind of matches up with the theme of the 600i. You do have the bed, you have the sink, you have some wine glasses, a fridge. There's a weapon locker, but there's no armor locker. There is a little locker there that shows for like clothing. Now, you're not going to be getting a large piece of armor in there. This is probably for storing like a suit, a business suit. And then when you put the business suit on, putting your flight suit in there. Right now, you can't interact with it. Directly across from where you enter, there is a bathroom hidden behind a door. The bathroom's nice, or having a bathroom is it makes sense in a ship of this design. And the fact that they put it where you hide it behind a door, so it's not right there, good little aesthetic. As we enter into the cockpit, I will say this is one of the better cockpits in game right now. The view is very clean and unobstructed. The horizon up is perfectly open, and even a little bit below the horizon, you have good line of sight. You don't have MFDs in the way or anything. You can see 2 MFDs relatively reliably, and if you pan down, you got 2 more. But overall, the cockpit is a good, clean aesthetic. Even when you look left and right for the lock, unlock, and stuff, you can actually see on what would be the digital panels that you would touch and everything, some lines that are, or some labels that are readable of what each one does, so you can kind of see where you would go for power on, power off, and all of that stuff. I really like the cockpit of this, and it definitely improves the flying experience of this ship overall. And so yeah, that's our walk around. It's an above average aesthetic experience. Now, as we go ahead and go forward, let's go ahead and start comparing this thing directly to the Avenger Titan. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, these two ships are very, very compatible. They're both within $5 of each other, but even beyond that. So we already mentioned the hard points on the 300 series. It is 3 size 3s plus 2 size 2 missiles. The Avenger Titan has 1 size 4, 2 size 3s. The Avenger Titan also has 2 size 3 missile hard points or 4 size 2 missile hard points. What this adds up to is, in total, the Titan on paper is capable of a little bit more DPS overall. Now, it's nothing drastic. If these two ships went at each other, the better pilot or the one that gets the lucky shot is going to come out more than the other one. Neither ship is going to have a significant advantage in terms of firepower over the other one. I will say, though, the default loadout on the Avenger Titan is much better than the default loadout on the 300i. I'll explain a little bit more why later on, but the default loadout on the 300i is 2 Shredders. They are ballistic autocannons, and an M4A laser autocannon. The M4A is the only one gimbaled, whereas the Titan, by default, all of its weapons are gimbaled. It has a Mantis GT220 minigun, and where's the other ones? Is that all it has by default? I think Hardpoint's out of date, because I'm pretty sure it had 2 Badger repeaters under the wings by default. Oh yeah, there they are. I'm just can't read. So yeah, the default loadout of the Titan is much better. It's got the minigun and then 2 Badger repeaters, all of them gimbaled plus its missiles on it. Where things get a little, actually, before we get into that, survivability. Survivability is almost again dead even. They actually both have the exact same shields, 7,560 shields. In terms of total quote-unquote hit points, 6,150 on the 300 compared to 6,452 on the Titan. Negligible amount of hit points. In terms of quantum, the 300i does have a little bit more quantum fuel. It's got about 125 more quantum fuel than, or 120 more quantum fuel than the Titan does, and it also is a little bit more efficient in terms of cooling. So it has a quantum range. They're calling it here gigameters of quantum travel range. The Titan is 60 compared to quantum range of 70. I don't know how that translates out, but I did feel difference. Traveling from Port Olisar to Area 18, the first time it brought me out of quantum, and the only time I came out of quantum, I was already only about 14 million kilometers from it, and I think that's 37 million roughly travel. So I went about 22 million kilometers before the quantum drive overheated, whereas with the Titan, I think it was closer to about 17. That was noticeable. It's not a drastic game changer, but it was something that stood out to me a little bit. Now, where the ships do differ a little bit more is going to be in terms of maneuverability. Overall, like, Normal speed, top speed, and yaw and roll aren't all that different. So the 300i has a normal speed of 204 compared to 189, maximum speed of 1188 compared to 1113. Roll and yaw, or I'm sorry, yaw and pitch, 68 on the 300 compared to 62 on the Avenger Titan, so a little bit more on your up and down, left and right. Where the 300 really stood out, and this I felt right away, was roll rate. Its roll is almost twice that of the Avenger, with 230 meters per second compared to 120 meters per second. So almost exactly double that. And that definitely did come into notice, where a significantly better pilot, if you have time to react and you take a hard hit, say on your port side shield, and that shield goes down, you can flip this thing faster and get the starboard shield into line of fire than you can with the Avenger Titan. As you can see, though, numbers-wise, not drastically different. The Avenger Titan might have a 5%, 10% gain in terms of DPS and hit point survivability, whereas the 300 might have 5 to 10% gain in terms of maneuverability. But they're in that ballpark. That's all going to be about the same. The one variable I brought up at the end of my Titan walkthrough video, my how good really is it, everyday use, which would have been the previous ship tour video. If you're looking for that, I'll try and remember throwing it in the cards. I said that the one thing the Titan really had going for it was 8 cargo capacity and easy access. You open the loading dock and everything, and you can put that down. Well, funny enough, when I first got this ship and I went ahead and went to pull it out and went up to the ship terminal, I noticed it said in the ship terminal 8 SCU. And this kind of threw me off. Now, I remember going back when I originally got my 300i, this was all the way back in 2.4, 2.5, something like that. They quote unquote claimed it had 2 SCU of cargo capacity. In fact, if you still go over to the ship matrix and you look under the 300i, it says 2 SCU of cargo capacity. And what this was, you had a very similar entryway into the ship. You climb up the ladder, and when you get to the top of the ladder, rather than there being a bed and a short little entry area into the right-hand side, there was just a wall there. And everything back was engine, but you had a little area you could stand in and drop your packages in, and then your seat was on your left-hand side. And that was quote-unquote considered 2 SCU. It was a lot more, though, like that of the Aurora, where there's no way to buy something and actually put it there. So if you'd go to a commodities terminal, you could see the ship and see the cargo, but there was no way to buy anything to put it there because there were no, like, pads or whatever, lock points for the cargo to be stored. It was just, all right, I went out and collected a black box. I now have a place I can drop it off. Again, very similar to that of the Aurora. That wasn't the case today, though. When I pulled this up and I saw that, I went over to the commodities terminal, and sure enough, I could buy cargo and put it into this thing. So, the reason we bring this up is one of the big advantages I was given to the Titan, and why I was saying I don't see how the 300i can compete completely out the door. This actually kind of makes these ships almost exactly identical. More so than I even expected, to the point where that $5 is, do you like the aesthetic of one over the other, and are you willing to spend a little bit more money? Also, what are the variants going to bring in? We'll talk about it a little bit more at the end. But this thing does have 8 SCU of cargo capacity. We'll come back to that towards the end of the video. So, aesthetically, all that stuff, hardpoint wise and everything, how does it fly? How does it feel? How does it, if you're going to use it? All in all, it's an enjoyable experience, an above average experience. Some of this might be tempered with, I went in with somewhat low expectations. As I said from my previous, just moment ago, I had expectations that it would have a tough time justifying its cost compared to a Titan. And then when I saw the cargo capacity and took it out, it surprised me. Handling and maneuverability and flying. When you're actually flying this thing along, it doesn't feel that much off of a light fighter, maybe more of a medium fighter, that of the standard Hornet models. It accelerates quick, it turns well, it rolls exceptionally well. You got good speed. The 3 size 3 hardpoints, they're nothing to scoff at. There's, that's the firepower of a light fighter. The one area that it did feel a little, I could tell that it was a little bit of a larger ship, was braking. If you're coming in at max speed onto a space station or anything really, and you got to slow this thing down, it does take a little bit to bleed that speed off. But once you do bleed it off and you're into your combat speed and everything, it was actually a very good experience. with the important note of once I got rid of the default loadout. As I mentioned before, the default loadout for this thing is really rough. I'm going to put in footage here of the very first mission I took it out on. So before I played with anything, I went ahead and I got a mission. It was go out, retrieve a stolen package from a ship. So I jumped in my ship, I flew out, and lo and behold, the person with the stolen package was in a Reliant core, one of the least durable ships in the game. Easily one of the easiest ships to kill. It's right there with the Aurora. It's just not a very tanky ship. And I'm like, all right, should be easy enough. And I start firing at this thing and stuff. And my first pass is reasonably good. I get some good hits on it and everything. And then I spend 4-ish minutes flying around trying to kill this thing, and I just couldn't. I got so frustrated I gave up. So I shot at this thing until I ran out of autocannon ammo. And at that point, it occurred to me, like, I used both missiles, and it occurred to me I wasn't going to be able to kill this thing. I mean, maybe if I spent an hour out there doing it, I could have eventually killed it. But some of this is me. I am not a good enough pilot, maybe, or I'm not good enough at aiming, that I couldn't reliably use the autocannons while also focusing on using the auto gimbal system in order to line that up and everything. So I didn't get a lot of damage out of my autocannons. Once they were out of ammo, then it occurred, like, what I saw was the M4A fired so slowly where maybe I'd get 1-2 good laser hits in, and then the ship would turn and change course, and then I'd be hitting a different shield, or I'd just miss for the next 4 to 8 seconds. And that was enough time for the shields to start recharging, and by the time I hit it again, the shields would be back to full. So I was fighting this constantly losing battle of trying to lower the shields to actually do damage to the hull of the ship, and it just wasn't there. To the point where I quit. I didn't quit the mission, but I was like, all right, enough of this. I've wasted all ammo I can use, and I've actually started to overheat the M4A laser cannon. So I quantum drived back to Port Olisar and rekitted out the ship. So I bought up 2 more gimbals, threw gimbals on the wings, and then because I just had spares of them around, I put 3 of the size 2, I think they're Badger laser repeaters. Flew back out there and destroyed the Reliant core in under 20 seconds. It was over. And from there, it was like, that point on, the flight experience, the uses of the 300i was all positive. I have no complaints about it at all. There's a little bit of, it's not a complaint, but there's something you need to prepare yourself for if you have this. So there's going to be a lot of loadouts that you can do for the 300 series that are going to be great. But the fact that the default one isn't good, it means every time that you're flying along and the server crashes, or you land at a place to buy some cargo, pick up a package or something, and your ship gets despawned and there's no vehicle terminal there. Every time that happens, you either need to go back and rebuy the weapons and rebuy the gimbals, or you need to exit out of the game, go into the hangar, open up your Mobi-Glass, unequip the weapons, re-equip the default weapons, save that loadout, go back into game, claim the ship. Once the shipping claim's gone through, re-equip the weapons, respawn the ship, and go. I realize that sounds like I'm making a big deal out of it, and maybe I am, but this happened to me twice over the course of my 5 hours, where I lost 5 minutes going back and forth, re-equipping the ship and everything because of either a disconnect from the server or my ship being despawned. The same thing can't be said for the Avenger Titan, where that ship, while the default loadout definitely is not the best loadout, if you go ahead and you lose that ship, you just go insurance claim, expedite, 1 minute later you're in the ship and you're going. You're not going to have to spend any additional money buying more weapons or anything like that. And that is something to maybe take into account if you're very limited on what ships you're getting, how much you're spending, things along those lines. It definitely was a bit of an annoyance. That aside, in terms of actual flying the ship, how the ship performs, how the ship handles, usability of the ship, it was perfectly great. To the point where I was getting done, I was flying back and about to come in here and make this video, and I was like, everything's all positive, especially with that 8 SCU of cargo capacity. It's the exact same cargo capacity of the Avenger Titan, and across the board, these two ships are pretty much exactly the same. In my opinion, the 300i has going for it a little bit better performance and a little bit better aesthetics. The Avenger has going for it better default loadout and a cargo bay that you can actually access, load in a gray cap buggy or things along those lines. So I thought. I landed and I was in 90 seconds of closing the game, logging off, coming over and making this video. And as I was leaving the ship, I stopped and I was like, you know what? It doesn't make sense. CIG, they don't cut corners. They like things to actually be physical, interactable points. And the fact that this has 8 SCU, like if you look at an Aurora or a Mustang, when you have cargo capacity, there's clearly a container. Maybe you can't open the container and see the cargo inside there, but there's something visually representing where the cargo is going to go. Also, similar to the base Hornets, when you put the cargo box underneath, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense that they have a ship that they've given 8 SCU to, but there's nowhere visually to see that. Lo and behold, I'm an idiot. But it is really well hidden. If you crawl underneath the ship towards the front half of the ship, kind of along the 50 line, there is a point you can interact, and there's actually a little cargo thing that lowers down. Really cool. Quite cool, actually, when this comes down. It actually makes sense. And this also explains why. So as mentioned at the beginning of the video, it seems a little odd, the ladder, where it seems like the door should open down and then some stairs would come down off of that or whatever. And maybe the ship could have been a little bit lower. Well, the reason the ship sits as high off the ground as it does now compared to the old ship, which still sat relatively high, but not this high, is because of this. So you can lower down the area and there's actually a cargo thing. Well, once I discovered this, then obviously I had to figure out what could go in there. Can I get a Grey Cat buggy in there? So flew out to Shubin Mining Facility, and the answer is kind of not really. Kind of not really. You'll see the footage here. You can get a Grey Cat buggy underneath this thing, just barely. Your upper roof is hitting it, and drive it onto the little cargo pad and everything, but you can't close it. When you try to close it, the area is only designed to be 1 SCU high, and a Grey Cat buggy is probably closer to 1.5 SCU high, so it just kind of gets squished into the geometry of the ship and explodes. Unfortunately, I think the same thing is going to happen if you can get a hover bike, a Nox, or a Yellow Jacket to go low enough to the ground to get underneath there. If you raise it up, they may be low enough, but I don't think so. The unknown is going to be a little bit the Ranger, the new motorcycle they've released. We'll have to see how tall that stands. If that's under 1 SCU tall, you might be able to drive that in there and raise that up. But again, I don't think so. I don't think you're going to be able to get any vehicles realistically in underneath this thing and raise it up. And it's not really a disappointment because I didn't expect it to have this at all, but that does mean there's still that one advantage to the Avenger. If you're someone with a Ranger in your hangar or whatever, you'll be able to put that in the back of the Avenger Titan, fly it around wherever you need to go. That's not likely to be something that you can do with the 300i. Yeah, so for what we have right now, there's the 300 series. It was all around a pleasant experience. I do think there's a little bit to talk about with the variants. This is going off the fact that we predict in the future you're going to be able to probably buy the components to make the 300i into the other ships and so on. So the 300 does have 3 variants that are coming out, and they're supposed to be available in 3.5.1, which could happen whenever. Hint, I think that's being held up by the website rework, not the ships. So personally, just a guess here, speculation, I think the 315, 325, and 350R are completely ready to go. But they can't be put in game because the website is being redone. And I think what's going to happen, this maybe I'll go into a longer video, or we'll see what happens when it does happen. I think the variants are going away. I think what will happen is you're going to buy an Origin 300 series ship, and then on the website, if you want the racing variant, or what would be the equivalent of the racing variant, rather than the 6-cylinder 350 horsepower engine, you're going to buy the 8-cylinder 450 horsepower engine. And then if you want the exploration variant, well, you're going to buy the extra quantum fuel tanks, and you're going to buy the scanning computer or whatever. And you're going to buy that all, and it's just going to be components individually that get applied to your account that are then tied to your insurance. I think that's what's happening. I think the reason they've been so quiet about 3.5.1, they haven't shown these variants at all, like they've been not shown a single photo of them that I've seen, is because of this. They're not going to be variants anymore. And over time, I think we're going to lose all of our variants. But that's just speculation. Maybe I'm wrong. I digress. Let's talk about what we do know currently. So the 300 series has, as I said, 3 variants. It's got a 315P, which is an exploration variant. It's got longer or more quantum range, which just is going to mean more quantum fuel tanks, plus some type of computer to explore down or scan down anomalies, asteroids, caves, whatever. There's the 325A, which is classified as interdiction. It should be noted the 325A was in game and has been in game for a while, did not have an EMP generator. So I don't know what they mean there by interdiction. This also ties to a little bit the Drake Buccaneer. The Drake Buccaneer is classified as an interdiction ship, also doesn't have EMP generator. Other interdiction ships like the Avenger Stalker and the Saber Raven and the Anvil Hawk, which is more classified as bounty hunting, but it is an interdiction ship also, those have EMP generators. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe the 325A and the Buccaneer in the long term, maybe the plan is more they will be for yanking ships out of quantum. They're going to have maybe a different mechanic for closing quantum tubes or whatever so that the ships come out of quantum and then you can attack them that way and not really EMPing. It just says interdiction. That's all we know. And then there's the 350R, the racing variant, which just has an enlarged engine. This is one I'm probably a little more interested in, which is kind of funny. I don't really care about racing. I more want to just see what you give up in terms of internal ship components, that little habitat area and everything. I'm guessing the cargo area is gone, but I'd like to see what like the inner, where the bed and all that is, if that's been taken up with engine too. But that one does look kind of interesting. And if we compare that over to the Avenger series, you have the Titan, which is the default. You have the Stalker we talked about, which has the EMP generator. And then I'm sorry, that's the Warlock. I had those backwards. The Warlock has the EMP generator. The Stalker has the holding cells for that. So there's a little more variety in terms of upgrades and component upgrades for the 300i, whereas the Titan, you can do bounty hunting missions, which you don't really have the option for that with the 300. The 300, you can do racing or pathfinding exploration. You can't really do that with the Titan either. So if you're thinking down the line, which ship is going to have more utility in terms of components I can buy in game, again, it's kind of a wash. It really is. There's no significant one that stands out, in my opinion, among these. Okay, what have I not covered? I think I've got pretty much everything there. All in all, the 300, it's a good ship now. If you're someone that is what you have in your hangar and you've never cross chassis out, upgraded out of it and everything. Previously, the old 300i before the rework, because it lacked cargo capacity and a lot of other things, it was not a very good ship. It lacked cargo capacity, it lacked a bed, it lacked any type of sustainability. It was the front end of an Aurora with a larger engine in the backside with a little bit better hard points. That's not the case anymore. Now it is a better ship. You have the bed, you have all that sustainability, and there's really, the only thing it can't do right now would be mining, and that's true for every ship that is not a prospector. So no real complaint on that. It's a good, solid, well-rounded ship, and for $65, I think I would still look more to the Titan just because I like the ground vehicle stuff. I really do. I enjoy the Dragonflies and the Grey Cap buggies and stuff run around on the ground. So personally, I think I would still go that route. But actually, this one, in terms of flying experience, was the better one. And you're not going to do wrong by it. All right, before we start rambling, that will do it. If you have flown around with the 300 series or have any of that, let me know what you think in the comments down below. And until next time, this has been Power. Thanks for watching.